Hey, ladies, welcome to the Saturday edition of Black Women Making Money. It's your girl Cherie here, and I have a special guest. I'm officially calling her my political correspondent. The Real Dana Network, aka Dana, is in the building. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here today. So we are going to. I've been wanting to talk about this conversation about reparations, and I'm like, who can I bring on to talk about it with? Because I kind of want to go back and forth. So you are an excellent person for that because you are, I consider the political girl in Black YouTube, in the
Okay.
Black space. Yeah.
I like that
So
catchphrase. I like that.
look, it's the truth. It's the truth. So, um, why don't you tell everybody about you? Oh, I'm sorry, ladies, couple of announcements before we have Dana tell us about herself. Number one, if you're not on our email list, you want to get on our email list, bwmakingmoney.com. It is free to join. You get exclusive content. And we are having a subscribers only session on May 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to help you level up your career and your business using LinkedIn, ladies. But the only way you can get the invite is if you're on my email list. It's free to sign up, bwmakingmoney.com. Also, ladies, don't forget to hit the like button. And any of my ladies listening to the replay, please put replay in the comment section. That way, YouTube can know that you are engaging with this content. So, those are my announcements. Now, Dana, why don't
Mhm.
you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and more importantly, like what brought you to YouTube and the political part of YouTube?
Um, I didn't want to talk about relationships, so like I have no patience to talk about relationships on social media. I just find it tedious because nobody is an expert unless
Hmm.
you are a board certified therapist. I don't take what you say seriously, but it's entertaining. But and then I always gravitated towards politics anyway, even though I wish it was more celebrity stuff because they make more, you get more views and more money.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I have my YouTube channel, The Real Dana, and it's politics, it's current events, um, black culture, black news, and of course, Judge Joe Brown. He really helped elevate my channel. He's on there. We do a show together every Thursday. I added another show, just him, Monday's podcast, Man Up podcast, because majority of my audience are men. It's like
Hmm.
75 to 80% men. So I try to cater towards them. But my women audience is growing too. So I want to cater towards the women as well. And yeah, so I try not to do too much political nowadays because of the censorship that's going on in our,
Oh.
but I do like current events and trending topics and also evergreen topics. So
Hmm.
um I've been on YouTube what, 4 years now?
Oh, that's it? I thought you were on longer than that.
Yeah, I was on the Star in the morning, from the Star Report,
Hmm.
there for a year, and then when that ended, that's when I started my channel, so it's growing slowly but surely, and, yeah, so I started with just the morning show with Star in the
Hmm.
morning, and then I branched out on my own. And then the Judge Joe Brown didn't come on my platform until maybe 2.5 years ago,
Hmm.
2019. Yeah, and so, I'm just building up from there.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I will say I really like your channel because there is a lot of the celebrity stuff or the relationship stuff. And for you, for the politics, I feel like the political stuff gets very dicey. Even though I know you do a lot of current events as well, but I do feel like if I want to know what's happening, if I'm looking at a Black news network, I kind of feel like you're it,
coming from
where
you, I
there,
appreciate that. That's a compliment.
yeah, yeah, where it's to me, it's a lot more balanced, and it doesn't seem to have some of um, the one of grifter. I'm gonna just call it grifter. The
Mhm.
grifter undertones that I feel other shows have. Let's just say it like that.
Okay.
So yeah. So when I know what's happening, well, you're obviously I'm subscribed to you, and like I just like to look and see what you're talking about because I feel like I've got current events and not just the stuff that's on CNN, but you get to like some of the other things that may not pop up on my news feed. So I really like that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And we used to always collab too.
Yeah, we can do it
Sheree know
again.
how yeah, Sheree know how to get messy. That's why I like her.
I can get messy. We talk about money. We talk about money over there, but in a messy way. So let's actually talk about money. So, ladies, don't forget to like the video. And if you're not on my email list, get on my email list, bwmakingmoney.com. We have exclusive content and including on May 21st, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to have a session on leveling up using LinkedIn. But the only way you can get an invite to that masterclass is to be on my email list, bwmakingmoney.com. So before we talk about reparations, I just want for us to talk about a couple of hot topics now as well. The
Okay.
first hot topic I want to talk about is, honey, Charles is king officially. And even more than Charles being king, that Camilla, she made it to the queendom. If
Child.
anybody knows about the about what happened with Camilla, I mean, I'm sure she was grinning ear to ear, like I made it. But
I mean,
here's
she was the side piece, and then the
Mhm.
mistress, and then the wife, and now queen consort. So
Yes.
live the king.
And it was interesting because she was married when Charles was married. They were fooling around with each other. She wasn't supposed to be with Charles. This royal family is just breaking all kinds of traditions. But it started with her. A lot of people think it started with Meghan, but it didn't. It started with Camille.
Well, I would even go back before her because um the other brothers and sisters, they were having affairs in their marriages, and Queen Elizabeth's sister with Peter Townsend. So they always had, messy personal relationships in
Hmm.
the monarchy.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that it led to marriage. So this was, I I thought the first marriage that kind of came from it. But
Oh yes, that's true. I don't think
mhm,
I don't think the Charles sister married the guy she had affairs with. Yeah, that is true. That's the first one that led to marriage. Yeah.
yeah. So here's the thing, though, ladies, because y'all know this is a channel about money. Apparently, Charles is worth over $2 billion.
Is that personal
Charles's
wealth or is that
Charles's
the monarch?
mhm. Charles's inheritance has reportedly made his net worth over $2 billion. And
Oh.
this is an article from a couple of days ago. This is an Investopedia. Additionally, the Crown Estate, which manages the monarchy's property holdings, is valued at $20.5 billion and generated an estimated $410 million in net revenue at the end of 2022. Y'all, Camilla is laughing. She ear to ear, she snagged she snagged a rich one.
Well, she was never poor, but
Yeah,
you
yeah, she
can't
was
top
always royalty.
empire. Yeah, you
Mhm,
can't
yeah,
top the monarchy.
yeah, she was royalty. Yes, she was. So she wasn't quite that scandalous. Um, so the next thing that I want to talk about before we get into reparations, we actually have a couple of other things. So the second is about the migrant crisis. There's apparently something called Title 42. And Title 42, my understanding is was a COVID policy that said because we didn't know who was coming into our country with COVID, that they shut down the southern border. Of course, shut down is in quotes. Well, apparently Title 42 uh, ended, and now people are preparing for. It's going to end in May, and now they're preparing for as many as 10,000 migrants to cross the southern border per day. We've always talked about the fact that this affects Black unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. What are some of your thoughts? What have you heard with regards to the migrant crisis that's forthcoming?
Well, this administration, favors that. Um, it's two things for me. I'm for build the wall.
Hmm.
But they're the and it's not because the illegals that are coming here are beneath me or unintelligent or not hard workers. It's just the opposite. They're our competition.
Hmm.
They're coming here, and not only are they coming here working hard, but they're coming here organizing and linking up with with the Hispanic slash Latino communities,
Hmm.
and they work together.
Hmm.
So illegals, if they could make it here in one piece, as soon as they cross that border and get whether it's asylum or DACA, whatever, they already have a step up of Black Americans as soon as they come across that border, because their people here is going to look after them and they're going to work together as a collective. However, I feel as though, first of all, you get to come over here and skip the line of a lot of people who still have their green cards, because our immigration policies has always been a mess for decades. You're skipping a line of a lot of people that have been paying taxes, contributing to our economy here in the United States. And also, I won't say so much taking jobs, but to a degree, maybe. But that I'm going to say is the fault of Americans, because what I'm seeing now is, comparing it to Black America, the reason why it's a problem for us, a lot of Black people don't want to work. I know personally people who own businesses, whether they're Black or white or whatever, paying good money, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, over $20 an hour. A lot of people don't want to work, and it started
Hmm.
before COVID, but it got worse during and after COVID. And then two, Black America, we do not organize. So, with that said, yes, build the wall, because crime will increase, drugs are going to increase, and they are already organizing when they get over here, and they're surpassing us. Hispanics and Latinos are surpassing Black Americans.
So I agree with build the wall as well, but I also believe that if Black Americans are not in the game, then, there's nothing that um, let's say I wouldn't stand in the way of others taking the opportunities if Black people are not taking those opportunities. I also believe that Black people should skill up. And on this channel, fortunately, our whole community is about skilled people. So, um, we're not as touched by the migrants as people who are unskilled. However, the children of these migrants are going to be your children's competitors. And if you are not raising Nepo babies that can go toe to toe with these individuals, then you're doing yourself and your children a disservice. So while we as skilled women probably won't be as affected, with regards to our job opportunities, it's important for us to prepare our kids for this.
No, very, yes, because not only other groups, people who are here, immigrants who are already here, who are citizens, and
Mhm.
illegals who are coming here, they're not looking at the now. They're looking at 20 years, 50 years down the line. That's how they're planning. They're not
Mhm.
planning for today. They're
Yeah,
planning for their grandchildren.
yeah.
It's another advantage that they have over Black people, because we're not planning for our grandchildren. We're not
Mhm.
planning for 50 years down the line. They're planning for legacy. Um, Now, I don't, I'm not saying, I don't have I don't have nothing against illegals, right? Like I said, they're smart, they're hard workers, they're our competition. Anybody that could pick up their babies and track literally through a jungle, knowing it's a 50-50 chance that you or your child or both of you will die
Mhm.
and be human trafficked, be mules for the drug cartels just
Mhm.
come here for an opportunity. That says a lot about an individual. But at the same time, Black Americans here in America, which I know we're going to go into the reparations talk, that was us. But we didn't get up and run. We literally, my lineage, my ancestors here literally fought. A lot of them sacrificed their lives, their livelihood, but they fought to be citizens and to have freedom here. And so I do look at the illegals. Why couldn't you do it where you're coming from? So it's easy, but it's not easy to get up and run.
Yeah, well, I will say I were in one of their countries, I don't know if I wouldn't run either. So I definitely, because we hear about some of the horrible, um, atrocities that are happening there. So, I'm just grateful that I was born with a blue passport, and I look at this as a double-edged sword. I think it's easy for us to say, "Hey, you should fight in your own country." I do know that people who, and then we'll move on to the next topic. I do know that people who have the mindset to pick up and move, when they get here, they don't stop moving. And that is the reason why Hispanics, especially, are expected to surpass Blacks exponentially in the next 10 to 15 years. So, Jay Antoinette is saying good points to you, Dana. Yeah, y'all were quiet in there. So, we're going to talk about reparations in a second. I'm
I
sorry?
I think because you have it on subscriber mode. Sometimes subscriber modes, people who are subscribed, they're hesitant to comment sometimes.
Oh, girl, no. Yesterday they were commenting up a
Oh.
storm. We were talking about the bus driver thing.
Oh, let's see. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm not well, maybe I am kicking Black people back in, but I think we love those type of conversations. And we need to start making these conversations the tea, popular. So
Mhm. Well, Selfish Love is saying she's a little late, but she's in the building as well. So, I think we have some lurkers here as well today, which is fine. We're going to get into reparations, but I just want to go through this last hot topic as well with Dana, who is my political correspondent. That's what I'm going to call her. Um, Reuters, Fox News, and others talking about the fact that there's record low Black unemployment. In fact, there was a Fox News story that said that we have the lowest Black unemployment now ever in history. So I know Trump was touting that. Now potentially Biden could say that. We do know that with these unemployment numbers, that they don't count underemployed people. They also don't count people who are chronically unemployed. People who are not looking for a job right now. So these unemployment numbers are always fudged a bit. But what
mhm.
do you think with regard to that, especially since we just talked about the migrants?
Yeah. In the beginning, when I said there are a lot of people who don't want to work, so those numbers are not included. I don't know the record low number. I'm going to off the top without even looking at numbers say whatever number is record low is skewed because are you comparing it to pre-COVID? Um, and how can it be the lowest now when we're just coming out of that pandemic? Yes, COVID happened in 2020. Majority of people were laid off. A lot of people were laid off, but the society didn't really start opening up fully until the beginning of last year. Um, I would say the second quarter of last year in 2022. And, and that's was mainly around the tri-state area. So again, where are they getting these numbers from and what years are they comparing it to? Unemployment is the record low. They could be piggybacking off of Trump numbers and trying to manipulate the numbers to to make their numbers look good with this administration. And then two, a lot of people again don't want to work.
Mhm.
So unemployed meaning I'm trying to look for a job and I can't find one. Not
Mhm.
I'm not even looking. I'm just sitting at home. You're not counting those people. So
Right, right. So Dawn to Earth is in the building. Hello, my dear.
yeah.
Saying it's a huge issue in Chicago, talking about the migrants because they are providing housing for immigrants coming. Chicago is a mess and a sanctuary city. Ladies, I couldn't live in Chicago. God bless you if you do, because
You know what?
Chicago is a mess.
I don't think I wanna go live with in another sanctuary city.
No.
If that makes sense to some people, like, you could but I mean, like, I'm liking the red states,
Mhm.
where I'm at now, this particular city is somewhat bluish, but it's not sanctuary.
Mhm.
So, I try to avoid sanctuary cities.
Yeah, look, the older I'm getting, the more Republican I'm getting. So look, that's just the way it is.
Mm.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about reparations then. We'll spend the rest of our time today talking about reparations. So um, I wanted to have this conversation with you, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, I think a couple of weeks ago when we were on, kind of behind the scenes. And I'll tell you this a story that I was having lunch with some of my coworkers, and they're all white. And this, I don't know how reparations came up, but it did. And immediately, a gentleman, probably in his 60s, white man said, "Well, my family never owned slaves, and I don't think we should pay for reparations." And I'm noticing that the narrative around reparations is just about slavery. And when you and I spoke, I also said that I don't think that I don't think that reparations is being positioned properly. And I would never, so I'm pro reparations. I am ADOS, both sides of my family. But I don't think um, that the country has an appetite for it. And I especially don't think that the Black community is willing to do what it's going to take to get reparations. We're not positioning it properly, et cetera. But you're more in the trenches than I am with regards to the whole topic and discussion. Tell me, like, what you're seeing, what's the temperature check that you're getting with regards to reparations?
Yeah, so it's starting to get messy when we talk about reparations for Black America, and that's saddened by people who are not Black and by certain Black people. First of all, I don't care how old you are, what part of the world you come from. I don't, your political party. Black people here in America, ADOS, whatever you want to call yourself, but lineage based here, we are old reparations. We have been old reparations since 1887. um, so um, that is why first of all, anybody that says Black people shouldn't get reparations and you're not Black, I don't even entertain you because you're a non-factor. Black people who are against reparations, right? I may have a discussion with you, but I put you to the side because you're going to have your hand out if reparations is passed in your state, or on a federal level. So the fight for reparations, why is it such a fight for Black Americans to even get reparations? And clearly we can see that our nation here want to keep Black Americans as a bottom caste, politically, economically, socially. So with that said, it is getting messy because people who are even pro reparations, they wanted, you have a certain group of Blacks who wanted to be global throughout the diaspora from our government here. And now you have people fighting over, well, what are we going to call ourselves now? And then you also have on a local municipality level, a lot of cities and counties in different states having all these different reparation committees, right? And they're calling it reparations, and it's not. It's actually will be restitution, but they're taking its name and slapping it on a lot of things because it's a big money grab. So
And yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the fact that it's a money grab. First of all, what is the difference between reparations and restitution?
well, reparations is more so. a repair, of something. Actually, let me just put up the actual definition and read it,
Okay.
instead of me just trying to give you my definition. But reparations, is compensation given for an abuse or injury, right?
Mhm.
Um, in the case for us, American descendants of slavery, a Black person who is descendant of those living in the United States, and a lineage traced back to slavery and Jim Crow. Restitution, restitution would be more like redlining. So the restoration of something lost or stolen, to its proper owner. So redlining will fall under it could fall under restitution and reparations, but for me, I would say more so restitution, because
Mhm.
when we're looking at generational wealth and rights that were taken away, or discrimination that was happening with Black Americans, real estate, and land ownership, that was made difficult for us to obtain, or it was stolen, or we were discriminated against, whether it comes to mortgages or neighborhoods we weren't allowed to live in. So it's I think people are taking reparations and think it's a one trick pony, and it's not. It's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, so J. Antoinette says that redlining, initially being excluded from the GI Bill, well-documented discriminatory lending practices, et cetera, which is very, very true. Selfish Love is saying here, I think Blacks like being a bottom caste. It's nothing stopping us from organizing and demanding restitution from our politicians. I think we don't have the appetite to really do what needs to be done, Selfish Love. True reparations are more than just about slavery. That's what I was saying. There were and are so many policies that have been in place that have impeded Black American success. Selfish Love is saying it's a fight because we are not organized. Selfish Love also says here America has paid reparations 1,000 times over to other groups, which is very true. And you're saying it's definitely not positioned correctly, which is part of what I was saying. So I want to go back to what Selfish Love was saying about it being paid to other groups, because I did not know until about 7, 8 years ago that the Japanese actually were paid reparations from being in internment camps in um, World War II. I was watching a documentary. I don't know, like I just never learned it in school or whatever. I must have been asleep in civics class that day.
So they
But
they
you know,
didn't teach that.
or they didn't mention it, right? But I'm watching this documentary, and all of a sudden they said yes, and in 1980, whatever the during Reagan's time period, Japanese received a check. I nearly fell off my couch. I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Because I knew that Jewish people did, but I didn't know that the Japanese people did. So we do see that there are other groups that have gotten reparations. They got them much faster. They got them during the lifetime um, when the people who had the issue, whatever issue it was, were actually still living. Um, I can say that, we were all, well, our families were promised 40 acres and a mule. Turns out that my family did receive acres in Louisiana. And I believe part of my success, a big part of it, was because of that, because we had something. And my grandmother was born in, the early 1900s, and she was the youngest of 12 kids, right? But because they had something and they were educated and things like that, that has led to, my mother, which led to me, etc. Whereas I can look at other people, and if we were to trace back what their families did not get, it might explain why they are in the negative wealth position that they're in today. What are some of your thoughts with regards to that?
Um, Wait, so were the 40 acres and a mule eventually taken away from your family?
No, no, no. We still have our land.
You still have the land. Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, I don't know if we got I don't know if we got a mule, but we did get quite a bit of land in Louisiana.
Right after slavery?
My grandmother was born on it, and she was born in 1912.
But but slavery ended in 1865, so
Mhm.
did
Her
did the
her
I
I
mean, was
mhm.
because remember, Black people were given 40 acres and a move, we were granted that. It's
Okay.
just that,
And, like, we
what was
never
the
had,
president?
gentrification, we never had, what do you call it, when they take your land? Eminent domain, like, our family never went through anything like that.
Okay,
So we always had stable property ownership, I guess I should say.
right, but you were probably less than 1% of the Black population that was able to
Exactly.
hold
So
on to that.
that's why I'm saying that part of the reason why I am who I am today is because we did not have those missteps that so many other people had.
Right, and I'm wondering though, because if your grandmother was born on in 1912, did the family buy it at because they worked and saved their money and they bought it, let's say, during Reconstruction because Black people were surpassing a lot of whites during Reconstruction,
Mhm.
and then were able to maintain it? Or was that the 40 acres and a mule that was given to Black people, and your family was just one of the ones that were able to hold on to it before? Was it President Glover or the person that became president when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated when he overturned that 40 acres and a mule? So we were given it, but it was overturned by the VP that became president under after Lincoln was assassinated. So again, if or did your family buy it, let's say during Reconstruction, and was able to hold on to it? So it's two things there. 40 acres and a mule that were given to the Black people after slavery, taken away. You're talking about and so we're talking about, yeah, reparations, and then a lot of other things that happened during slavery, um, that was damaged for Black people, even at the end of slavery. And then what happened after Reconstruction? You usher in Jim Crow, you know,
Mhm.
you usher in redlining, amongst other things. Um, so let me just highlight this because it says restitution is the restoring to the rightful owner what has been lost or taken away. Reparations is restoring to good condition of something that has been damaged. So that falls for both of Black, that those two things fall for Black Americans. A lot of people who were able to buy their land or maintain it, like for instance in Texas, another YouTuber, he was telling me his story. A lot of any his grandfather had land and they had a home and they had a farm and everything,
Mhm.
but the land sat on some oil. And this
Mm.
was around in Texas. So the company that we know of, Exxon now, they weren't named Exxon back then, um, around the late 1800s or the earlier 20th century. When the grandfather died, the white man came to kill off the wife and everybody else, but his grandmother ended up fleeing, right? And so
Mhm.
took her land because it was oil there or whatever. And that happened a lot. And she ended up moving to what developed into the projects today, the housing developments, even what it wasn't called that back then.
Mhm.
Again, a lot of things such as that happen in different states throughout this nation. Um, and is that what to me that's reparations, and that's also restitution. So a lot of people land was literally stolen by famous corporations that we see today
Mhm.
that needs
Well,
to be repaid and repaired.
yeah, so when we talk about, because we are business women over here, when we talk about, like, it being marketed properly, and I'm using marketing in just a general term, just because I don't have a better term. I think there needs to be in education with regards to, and I know you disagree with this, with regards to not only politicians, but the general public, with regards to why reparations and restitution is owned. I personally think there needs to be uh, greater appetite for reparations like there was for the civil rights union, for civil rights. So in the 1950s, people really didn't think that white people knew, there were issues, but they really didn't know how bad it was until the cameras showed up. And Dr. King, let's be real, had like a very clear message. And people were like, well, maybe this is an issue. And because of, I believe, partially some of the national pressure, um, civil rights was passed. Now, we know that there were other things happening as well on the back end, definitely. However, I just don't see reparations passing, like literally passing, without a cohesive message, a cohesive explanation of it's not just about slavery, it's about all of these other things given at a third grade level, like somebody is running for president, say Donald Trump, being able to basically say this message in a succinct way with whomever the scene leaders are of the reparations movement, saying it over and over again for like 18 to 24 months straight until people say, we get it, you're right, you are owed, he, let's follow up with the plan. um I know you probably think differently, but that's just how I see it. That's the reason why I'm like, this doesn't seem like it's going too well to me.
Well, the civil rights movement, the civil rights, the Civil Rights Act that was passed, was it 1964?
64 and
Yeah.
65, yeah.
So that had nothing to do with protesting. Well, not protesting, the marching. The
Mhm.
reason why they wanted the cameras there because they knew that they were going to be physically attacked by the dogs or whatever, and they wanted it to go global, right?
Mhm.
Talking about how the UN and other nations.
Mhm.
But the the civil rights legislation was passed because of the lawyers and the politicians, everything that was happening behind the scenes. And most importantly, people forget, and I don't think people of that generation don't even talk about that more like they should. It was an economic boycott that Black people were doing. When we talk about the Montgomery boycott, that's
Mhm.
probably the most known economic, but there were other economic boycotts. So when it comes, one thing people gotta understand, white people, everybody gotta understand, because a lot of white people are in denial, but Black people really gotta understand white people love their money. And if
Mhm.
you really wanna hurt, well, no, not you, Cherie, because you know this. I'm talking about people in general.
Oh, yeah, I'm just agreeing with
Yeah,
you. I'm
people
saying amen.
like, if you wanna hurt Black, if you wanna hurt white people, you gotta touch their money. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about nobody else. They care about their money. They care about that generational wealth. So the Civil Rights Act was passed because of the economic boycott that once upon a time when Black people worked as a unit, and then you had the lawyers and certain politicians, and not just politicians, but politicians working behind the scenes. And so
Yeah.
they had that whole thing, that whole structure, and it was not Martin Luther King. He was just the
He
face
was the
and
face,
speaker.
yes.
We gotta do the research on the people that were organizing everything behind the scenes. And that is what we need today, but in a 2.0 and a 2023 version, which I kind of want to share and highlight what's going on in California.
Okay, well, hold on for a
Mhm.
second. Thank you, Selfish Love. Everybody, yes, please hit the like button. Selfish Love is also saying to you, Dana, that you were going to do a show with Diamond Dave about why all of our organization failed at the civil rights movement. She's asking that you please do it because she is confused And hey, Denise.
Hi, Denise. Oh, okay. I didn't. Was I supposed to do a show on that? Okay. Thank you.
Uh,
I'm gonna put that down so we can do a show on
yeah,
that.
like Diamond Dave knows everything.
Yeah.
He's like the not guru, what do you call it?
I just told him, I said, make it plain. He knows how to make it plain for you to understand it.
Yes, yes. So, okay, so if people don't know what's happening, San Francisco said that they were open to $5 million payouts in, you know,
Oh, I had another
boy, oh
article,
boy.
but
Oh,
yeah,
you did? Okay, you want to pull up your article?
yeah, because it wasn't this one. It was the reparations task force. Where is it? Okay, so this is from the reparations task force. So inside of California proposal to pay 1.2 million in reparations to Black Americans.
Okay, so that's revised. All right.
So they just had, when did this come out? May
May.
4th,
Hmm.
yeah, this past week, because I think it was either today or yesterday. They had another meeting. I think it was in Oakland, the task force. It's all over Twitter, and Tariq Nasheed even got up there and spoke. But so the California Reparations Task Force will vote on a series of proposals this weekend that could see descendants of slavery living in the state each receive $1.2 million. And I believe the population percentage in the state of California for descendants of slavery is less than 5%.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So are people going to have to? So we've seen these types of programs before where they say something like this, and then the hoops you have to go through in order to get the money or get the dollar house or whatever it is so awful that 90% of people abandon it. Is it going to be one
Oh,
of those types of things?
it's not a program. You're talking about an actual bill. And do so the judge, whenever we talk about reparations, he's not against it, but he was like, okay, for California, how, if he's saying where the money gonna come from, because California
Mhm.
is broke, which I do
Mhm.
believe that. But the task force, the California Reparations Task Force, and honestly, I do commend the work that they're doing, and it's very important that we look to California, because like they always say, what happens in California, so goes the nation. um they are saying, yes, we know, California is limited, so they're going to go to the federal government. So if the state can't pay, they're going to go to the federal government and get the money. So it's not about where the money is coming from, because we're going to get the money. It's about how and who is going to get it. That has to be laid out, because there are a lot of people that are saying, if you just check off Black, you should get it. And it's like, no, it has to be lineage based.
Mhm. Which I agree with. I definitely agree with. That that's another concern that various people have, like, how is this going to be distributed, and et cetera, et cetera. Now the government knows who you are. They know who your granddaddy is and your grandmother and all of that, so it's not like they can't trace that. And the other big thing, Jay Antoinette is saying, I heard about the San Francisco reparations. Lots of non-Black people were in an uproar. Nationwide they were very much talking about it. um,
But see, just real quick, the San
mhm.
Francisco, and that's what I'm saying when we talk about our local municipalities, because
Mhm.
when that hit headlines, and we know the headlines, they know how to put a headline for
Mhm.
sensationalism. That became messy, because you had the NAACP saying, no, we
Mhm.
want to give out a check. We should have like X amount of programs. And then you have people saying, we don't want programs. We should have both. And that's what I mean. It's just getting messy. And a lot of that stuff is very intentional. But I agree with you, Cherie, when you said that we do need to be educated. But the question is, who is the right person or people to educate ADOS on reparations?
See, I think that ADOS needs to be educated, but I do think that non-Black people need to be educated as well. So
But
let's talk about 2.0.
mhm,
So, um, you're obviously a better student of the civil rights movement than I am, but my understanding of the civil rights movement is, yes, you had MLK, which was the face. right, of the protests and things like that. Then you had Thurgood Marshall, who was taking things to court. So he was the court, like he was the legal part of the movement. And then you had a third person. I wish I remembered who it was, but they were handling another part of the movement and they were all on one accord. And then you had Malcolm X to the side saying, and if you don't deal with those Negroes, we're prepared to burn this mother down, right? That's like part of the, the old joke that people have talked about. But with 2.0, what we don't see, what I'll tell you what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is social media. However, we have Black people talking to Black people. And yeah, that's possibly how it would start. But what we don't see is the leveraging of social media to talk with white people with a cohesive message. We do have, you know, ADOS, for example, and then you have FBA, and that's all messy. And then you have this group that went to Congress a few years ago, and whatever they did, I mean, they talked about a whole bunch of nothing. And this is where, again, somebody like me, first of all, I will, if somebody asks me, hey, Cherie, do you Black Americans deserve reparations? Yes, absolutely. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, but I don't know. This campaign doesn't look like it's is going too well. So,
Mhm.
um, you
Well,
know,
why do I don't I'm not in the business of I don't care if non-Black people understand it or not, because it has nothing to do with them.
I
Um,
think you should.
no, Jewish people are not saying other people who are not Jewish need to understand why we need reparations or how we got it. They're not. No other group
But that was
that
different,
will ever.
Dana.
No, no.
That
My point is, no
mhm.
other group was ever concerned with outsiders understanding why they need to get something. It's not about that. It's not about, we don't need white people, we don't need Indians, we don't need Jewish people, Asians, we don't need no one to understand why we are getting it. We need to understand it first, and we need to organize on getting it.
I disagree with you. I think no other group had to explain it because it was evident. It was evident that the Jewish people were wronged with Auschwitz and things like that. People could actually see it. It was evident with what happened with the Japanese.
Well, it was
It
evident.
may seem evident with slavery, but people are saying it's too far back. You
No, no, no. I
yeah,
think what I'm saying is they didn't need Black people approval, whether we understood it or not. So whether it was evident or not. Now, yes, it was evident that what happened to Jewish people during the Holocaust. But what did that have to do with United States? They still getting grants from us because of that. United States is working with France because they just got another check from the French railroad so that they could distribute to the Jewish people here. Their lineage based here. So whether it's evident or not, whether you are educated on it or not, that's not the priority, because we don't need them to understand it to get it. The reason why the Japanese got it, because they organized and fought for it. The same with Jewish people. They know how to work the system. They work together. So, okay, if you want to understand why we're doing what we're doing, I explain it to you. But whether you agree or not, that's a non-factor.
yeah, and I guess we'll just continue to be on the opposite side with that.
Okay, so let me
I
ask you this.
also mhm,
Let me just ask you this question.
mhm,
How will it benefit us if we convince white America, and I'm talking about the citizens,
mhm.
not the politicians, but how can it benefit us if we convince non-Black people that we deserve it?
Because I think that reparations, the only way that I see reparations really passing is if it's a populist campaign like the civil rights movement was. I don't see it passing any other way. I personally don't see it.
Well, it's not a law for people to vote on. It's not a law for the public to vote on reparations, and I think that should be part of the education for Black people and others to understand. reparations is not a law that when we go on November 4th and go in the voting booth to vote on. That it's not that type of law. It's not that type of vote. So it's not that type of support that it needs. And if we understand, okay, what goes into getting reparations? Well, let's study Black people, forget everybody else. Black people need to study. Well, how did that come about? Because ain't no white man sitting in the White House saying, oh, we have to pay these people for putting them up in a damn camp. Because the government don't give a damn. And we should study what Jewish people, how did they get it from Germany? Because it's more international. And how are they getting grants and restitution and other things from the American government, particularly and then you got to look at it, how are they getting it on a local municipality level and on a federal level? Because in New York City, just in the city borough, they have their own school board. So and not only do they have their own school board, New York State, they have $1 billion budget that they get from the federal and the state government to have their own separate school board, Jewish, their own schooling system that our tax dollars pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the uproar with Black people about that? We don't care. But are they asking us, do we care? Are they asking us to understand that? No. They're just getting what they want because they know how to work together and work the system.
Yeah, and I understand the parallel with regards to that, but I think that Black America always has an extra layer to it. And again, we'll just disagree with this point that I personally don't see enough. I think that politicians, for reparations specifically, politicians need to see more of a populist yes for it, for reparations to pass. And, again, you're the political person. So, like, what you believe is 95%, what I believe is 5%. I just am like, and I get what you're saying with regards to the fact um, that other groups didn't need a public push to get things done. I also understand that other groups had economics behind them, which we don't have. They have they had the will to do things politically that we don't have, in my opinion. But I also believe that reparations has just another layer of complexity where um, where there needs to be more of a public facing, at least for me, like in my opinion, I should say, in my opinion, for reparations to truly be done on a national level, I still believe that there needs to be a public um, public information
Mhm.
platform with regards to, this is not just about slavery. This is about Jim Crow. This is about redlining. This is about GI
No,
money not being
yeah,
passed.
I totally get what you're saying, and the thing is though, and that's a double-edged sword, that it has to be like a public platform because I agree with you, but then a part of me wants it to be private because it's getting so crazy and messy. I wanna share this other article real quick
Mhm.
because, all right, because this is what's happening, right? Denver councilwoman proposes taxing white-led businesses as reparations to support minority
I saw
enterprise.
this. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and she's not even Black, I don't think.
And this is what I mean. And to me, this stuff is being brought to the forefront and mentioned to muddy the waters of reparations. This is ridiculous.
And it's working, Dana. It's
Right.
working. It's working, and this is why when reparations happen, because I believe that some form of reparations may happen. I'll just say may, I won't some form of reparations will happen. I don't know what it's gonna look like.
Mhm.
I think that there's going to be a backlash that could be prevented And I think you're going to have people like, in Fox News, et cetera, or, some of these crazy stations pumping propaganda that we did not get in front of.
That's the word, propaganda.
And even though it may seem like, oh, it's not a big deal, I'm not so sure that the way that we're doing it now is going to be effective. I want to show something though. I
I
want to
agree
show.
with you on that. I
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
it's too much propaganda coming from Black people and outsiders.
I'm glad you said Black people. Propaganda from Black people. So there is a gentleman named Mark Robinson who is running for, I think it's North Carolina governor, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
Let's
he's
listen.
a lieutenant governor now, and he's running
Mhm.
for governor.
So let's listen to what he said about reparations.
There are some people that were talking about reparations in this country. They wanted reparations. And I remember I made this particular liberal so angry at me because I told them right to their face, nobody owes you anything for slavery. If you want to tell the truth about it, it is you who owes. It's you who owes. Why do you owe? Because somebody in those fields took stripes for you. Somebody, after those fields were ended and slavery was ended, somebody had to walk through Jim Crow for you. Somebody fought wars and died for you. Somebody lived less than because they didn't have what you have, and they did it for you. There are people in their graves right now, and they are there because they were willing to stand up and fight for you. Those folks on the Edmund Pettus Bridge carrying American flags, take that, Colin Kaepernick, living in a society that he could scarcely acknowledge, something that he has never known, living with a bigotry that none of us can imagine. Carried American flags on that bridge. And when they were hit upside the head with nightsticks and shot with water hoses and knocked to the ground, they got up and picked those flags up and kept marching. And they did it for you. Nobody owes you anything. If anybody owes, it's you. Because you've been the benefactor of freedom. You are the one that owes. And what do you owe? You owe it to them to get up off your tail and get to school. And when you get to school, you owe it to them to get up off your tail at school and get to work and get some learning in your head. And once you get that schooling in your head and get out of that school, you owe it to them to get to work. And then when you get to work and you get married, you owe it to them to take care of your children and not let the government take care of your children. It's you who owe. Nobody owes you a single solitary thing. The sacrifice and blood that has been laid out in this nation on your behalf, there is a bill at your feet for it. It's time you got up off your tail and went and go pay it.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, because I saw a few men in here as well. This is Mark Robinson.
Well,
Now, oh, I want to say one thing, Dana, before you start. Now, overall, if it wasn't laced with reparations and how we owe reparations, he is right that people sacrifice for us. He is right that we should go to school and we should learn and things like that. But he he like wrapped stuff together that doesn't even go together. Go ahead, Dana.
yeah, so he's running for governor. I don't know who his opponent is, but if the opponent is a Democrat, I will still vote for him. What's his Robinson? Because,
Mhm.
and this is the thing, I'm not afraid to vote for someone who says that they're against reparations. He didn't say that. See, his speech was very clever because he needs that white vote in North Carolina if he's ever going to be governor. Period. So he did not throw Black people under the bus, but he said something that was very comfortable for white people. but I would still vote for him. Because North Carolina is a flip state, which would be what considered purple. They have a lot of things going on. Like when you talk about Charlotte or the Raleigh area, which it's really about to be heavy Democratic. And they're into that LGBT gender conformity stuff because in North Carolina, they do allow transgender to participate in girls' sports. And that wasn't so much on a state level, that was passed through the Board of Education. See, people got to understand and be educated on how stuff is passed, on what level. So, okay, a lot of people are saying, well, you know, Biden doesn't talk about it, or our best shot, like a Roland Martin, our best shot of getting it is with the Democrats, which is BS, because they say the Republicans, they're just anti. And this is them people like him trying to scare Black people for going to another party or just not voting, right? And I'm about to land my plane. But the thing is, it's not about relying on a party. Don't sit up here and let someone who is a politician, such as Lieutenant Governor, who are not pro reparations, right? It's not about whether someone is pro or anti. And this is where the education comes back to what you were saying, Cherie, that we need to be educated. Is how do you get stuff done for your particular group, right? Whether that politician is for it or not. Dr. Amos Wilson said, we are the forecasters. The politician is just a presenter. But Black people act like they are the forecasters. They act like the politicians are the forecasters. So it doesn't matter whether he's for it or not. It's up to us to organize, and whether it's boycotting economically or putting people in certain positions to make sure that we're getting legislation passed that has to do with restitution and reparations. Also, one more thing. When you notice that, let's say the state of Tennessee is red, it's majority Republican. So the Democrats really don't have much power when it comes to the House votes in the state of Tennessee. And I pose this because you're talking about you have to play chess, right? But what if majority of Black people, let's say on the state level, that's a red state, switched and voted Republican? What does that tell you? That tells you that you are gaining an advantage in the party that controls the state. So if you're part of a party that has little power in that state, then of course you're not going to see something like reparations be passed in your favor. But if you were to join the majority, which would be the Republican, that means you're able to vote in the majority on things that is actually going to pass. Do you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, I do.
It's political strategy, but political strategy is what's lacking today in my generation and younger, and even one generation ahead of me. But that is what's lacking with Black America. We don't know how to politically strategize. And every other group, even the illegals, they know how to do it.
Yeah,
That's how we're
so
gonna get reparations. So that was my conclusion with that.
hey Stephanie, I see you here. Um, so it's interesting you mentioned like the joining the let's say GOP, or
Mhm.
the Republican party, if they are the majority party in a state. I will say a couple of things with regards to that. Number one is that in my local chamber, I decided to go to this legislative luncheon that they had. It was actually a breakfast that they had. And I'm like, okay, if I join the chamber again, I actually want to join the legislative group because I want to be more involved with politics and knowing my state senators and my local council people in the district. Well, it just turns out that I'm sitting there and they're kind of going through like what they did this legislative term, and they're sitting there like, yeah, we got $500,000 for this group, and $250,000 for this group. And it wasn't a group of like Black people or Asians. It's like this city organization or that or whatever. And it's like you're saying, like they went in with a strategy and they were playing the game.
Right.
The other thing that I will say, and I said this in 2019 when Trump was running for reelection, I said, if we wanted reparations, the person to go and get reparations from would have been Trump, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I never thought Biden, Kamala, any of the Democrats would have had an appetite for it. I also believe that people follow Trump so much. There's a certain segment of the population who follow Trump so much that he would have said, "Yeah, we're going to do it. We're just going to take care of them. Don't worry about it. I got it under control." And people would have went for it, you know?
Mhm.
So when Ice Cube said, "I want to go meet with the Republicans because the Democrats aren't inviting me," and black people were shooting him down, I thought again, like again, I'm not in a political thing like you are, but I thought, well, that's kind of stupid. So this is why I'm like, I don't think we have a real appetite for getting reparations. And I know what you're saying, that things are really muddy right now. And I agree with you there. But we don't have an appetite to boycott. We don't have an appetite to get organized around social media and have like one central theme. We don't have an appetite for how the civil rights movement was structured with like you have the forward facing person, you have the legal person, you have the legislative person, et cetera, et cetera. There's like no coordination, at least that I'm able to see, without seeing other people come in and muddy it up, like you said.
Right. So
So, yeah.
every, every other group that came here, immigrants and that continue to come here, they use what Black America did in the 60s, and they're using that today to advance their group.
Mhm.
Um, so and then what the old Black oligarchs are doing that are in somewhat position of power or know certain people or in a political realm, um, they are just out for self, right? And their family, their own personal legacy. But that's how Black America is operating. We operate as on an individual, and we could never advance. That is our problem. We would never advance because we operate on an individual, not as a group. And me and Diamond Dave talked about that um, in a video that eventually I am going to post up. But that's gonna be the main downfall of Black America. I don't care how many degrees or how much money you're making, you're still operating on an individual level. And we don't know how anymore to operate as a collective because the old Black oligarchs, they know how to do it, but they're not gonna teach it to us, or they're gonna try and um, interfere with what the younger generation is doing because we're not on their program. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah, so you're dealing with that. So the case for reparations, literally, that's the main problem that we're having. Not even white people. Nobody cares about white people when it comes to reparations for Black people, and we shouldn't. But that is the main problem. It's us. It's more so internal fighting that is happening, and you have majority of Black people want us to get it and want us to work together, but they don't know how. But they got
Mhm.
to understand it's going to take time, sacrifice, and education, and are you willing to do that? And then you have the old Black oligarchs that know how and do have the connections, but they want to do it their way. And they know that we don't want that. So they're going to try and destroy it and take money for themselves.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said before, I definitely am pro reparations. I would never ever, stand in front of any non-black person and say anything but that.
I mean,
Um,
you're a businesswoman. So as a business person, come on, what are the benefits, right?
yeah, of course.
Like
Of
without
course.
reparations right now, even as a business person, being Black and then being a Black woman, you already know all the money that's out there.
Yeah.
That has
But
nothing.
I also know, and you and I had this conversation on your channel, that we as Black people are not tapping into the resources that are out there. We spend
Right,
more time talking about Ebony and Iyanla this
right.
week than we did talking about all of this money that's out here. How do we get the government contracts? How do we get, the money from the SBA? Things like that. So that's why I'm saying also that the appetite is not really there. We could be leveraging all of these social networks for so much more than we are. And
Yeah.
it's just an interesting time. I have to also admit that the reason I run as an individual, and when I say individual, I mean like a very, very small group, is because I can't trust the group at large. And the reason that I can't trust the group at large is because there's a lot of grifting and a lot of, saying one thing one day and another thing the next. And we can't, like, if the group says, "Hey, we are boycotting Gucci." I don't buy Gucci anyway, but we're boycotting Gucci. Next thing you know, the next day we're seeing 15 people going into the Gucci store, or we're boycotting this beauty shop because they messed with a Black woman yesterday, and next thing you know, you got a line of people going in there. So
Yeah.
that is a part of it as well, where you would have other people like me participating more, except I'm like, I don't believe we're serious. So
Absolutely.
um yeah.
Absolutely. We got to do the part two because, well, I'm gonna upload the first part when we were talking about Black women or just Black people being consumers. The
Hmm.
part two is the hair and beauty industry, because honestly, yeah, just going back to the Ebony K. Williams and Ayana. First of all, Ebony K. Williams, we did waste time talking about her. However, if you was want to, as a content creator, if you want to get views, go ahead, talk about it.
I
But
did yesterday. Yes, I did.
but I'm sorry, even women like her, there are a lot of professional Black people, and let me just focus on Black women. This is a Black women's channel, um, do more harm than good, because you got to take accountability. And I'm not talking about you, Sherry. You got to take accountability of your shortcomings, because how can you sit up here and you go on a Breakfast Club, and I'm using that being as an example, and talk about all of the negatives of Black men? Yes, that is happening. But where are your solutions for young Black boys? You don't have any, right? That's number one. And then number two, you're Black women, you're the same ones that echo her talking points, but you're buying from the Asians triple time. And they're locking you out literally of an industry that you are dominating, being the dominant consumer and not owning it. You're not owning you're not owning the very industry that we Black women dominate as consumers. We
Yeah.
can't own nothing in that industry because we're paying a certain group of people, i.e. the Asians, you know what I'm saying, to lock us out. So you sound like a hypocrite coming for Black men and Black boys, and Black boys and men do the same thing too, but you sound very hypocritical when you are economically supporting a white supremacist group. And I'm just gonna, and I hate that WS term, but I think we all need to just re-examine ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, according to Dr. Darity, 14 trillion is due. Um, that would help tremendously with regards to helping more Black families get into home ownership, helping more with student loan debt, all of the things that other people are able to do that so many of us are unable to do, starting businesses, having equity in our homes so that we are able to get those business loans in order to start businesses. Now we would be able to have the money to do that from grants and things like that. But there's also resources out there. I didn't pull them up today, but we'll have a resources discussion as well, because we can still tap into other programs and get our unfair share of those until hopefully reparations comes through. So I want to give you the last word, Dana, and then we're going to head out.
Um, okay. Well, First of all, you're gonna have to do part two because reparations is again the because the title is the reparations discussion, right? It's like a collage. It's like a big collage, and then maybe me too. I need to actually start doing more content, breaking down different sectors under the collage of reparations. We do need to mentally, emotionally, psychologically get our stuff together, Black Americans, particularly ADOS, if we want reparations, period. We have to educate ourselves on how to get it. We have to program ourselves on how to work together and organize, whether you like somebody or not, whether you agree with them or not. And we have to learn from the past. And we do need to go back and study the civil rights movement, not what we saw on television, but what was going on behind the scenes. It's in books, but do we want to pick up that book and read? And we need to apply those techniques to today in today's form. So we have a lot of work to do. We are literally the bottom caste here in America. We've been the bottom caste throughout, you know, since the Mayflower. We've been the bottom caste. Every group of people that have come here has surpassed us. And I'm even going to put the natives that were already here surpassing us as well. So we have a lot of work to do. And I think we need to stop focusing on silly stuff majority of the time. We need to just switch it. So, but thank you, Cherie, for having me.
Thank you. Yes, you are my official political correspondent, so I will be inviting you back to have all sorts of other political discussions, especially since we have the 2024 election coming up. There's a lot that's going to be on the ballot, and you know,
Yeah, I mean, and I think I did really good, like, because sometimes I could be very messy, and I like to be messy sometimes. And I was going to be messy today, but I'm like, I'm going to behave myself on your platform.
I appreciate it.
I
And
know what I'm
some
talking
other
about,
time,
but I was going to be messy, but I'm like, not today.
yeah.
Um, get back, Satan.
Well, like you said, reparations is very messy right now, so we don't need to add to the mess. But yeah, but we are definitely going to talk about politics because politics is important to wealth. And, we're going to see what happens. We'll see if DeSantis throws his hat in the ring in the next couple of weeks. And,
Oh, is he
the,
supposed to? Is that the announcement or something?
well, apparently um, he cannot say he's running for president officially until the Florida legislative season is over, and that's supposed to happen like around this time sometime. So that's why he's been doing things like going to Japan and things like that. And
Oh,
people are thinking he's going to run for president and he's got his, super PAC and all of that, but he hasn't announced. I was told it's because it's something in the Florida law.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
either way, I'm voting Republican, but I will be voting for Trump. So,
Yeah, okay, so look, we're gonna have you back to talk about that and so
yeah.
much more.
Thank you, Cherie.
Thanks, and tell everybody, okay, so on YouTube, everybody, she is at The Real Dana. If you all wanna go and check out Dana for current events, Judge Joe Brown, political topics, things like that, that is what Dana talks about on her channel, and she's my official political correspondent, so
Thank you for that title. Also, you can see on the screen, instead of me putting my name, I put my website. So I want people to go to the website. It's a mailing list. It's a landing page right now. Sign up to the mailing list because I am going to launch the website over the summer. So go to therealdananetwork.com and sign up to the mailing list.
Yes, ladies, yes, please do that. And don't forget my mailing list as well, bwmakingmoney.com. We're going to have a LinkedIn masterclass session on May 21st. The only way you can get invited is to be on the mailing list. So go to therealdananetwork.com and bwmakingmoney.com to sign up for those. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great weekend. Bye.